Hello. Welcome to all you PMOs, PMEs, POMOs, POMEs, and PIMQs. Welcome to the world, the podcast where we discuss all things related to the process of waking up, walking out, and moving on from a life as a Jehovah's Witness. I'm Dr. Ryan Lee, a former JW with a doctorate in clinical psychology, and a practicing therapist specializing in helping former JWs and other former cult members move through the recovery and rebuilding process. Okay, how's it going, guys? It's been a minute. I'm feeling all excited to talk to you again. One of the reasons I'm particularly excited is that I am very happy to announce that this Ex-JW Ayahuasca retreat is actually happening. Now, I know for most of you it's probably the first time you're hearing of it, but I'm particularly excited because I've been working on it for, starting in November at least. We started making plans, but even goes back before that. We always thought this would be a great idea. And yeah, it's exciting to feel like it's finally coming to fruition. Now, I know right off the bat, when you hear ayahuasca retreat, you're probably falling into one of three categories. People in Category 1 might think, wow, that sounds pretty interesting. Something that might call to me. Let me learn a little bit more about it. And if you fall in that category, then I would highly encourage you to check out my website, drryanlee.com/retreat. Now, Category 2 people, I'm guessing, is something like, that sounds weird. That sounds strange. I don't know what that's about. And if you fall into that category, I would also encourage you to visit my website, drryanlee.com/retreat. And then there's Category 3, and I'm almost quoting this verbatim because I have gotten this, which is something like, have you no shame? You call yourself a doctor? This is irresponsible! Drugs! And to you, my good gentlemen, while I take umbrage at your tone and choice of vocabulary, I do hear that at the heart of your objection is an authentic concern, which is that people might be harmed, or will be taken advantage of by somebody who's only out to make a quick buck, or thinks the world would be a better place if we just pumped LSD into the water supply. I mean, it would definitely be a more interesting place. But I think we've all had about as much as we can take lately of the world getting interesting. But I digress. Yes, my good gentleman with the mutton chops and prominent jowls. I love that voice. I wholeheartedly disagree. Well, listen, man, all jokes aside, I wholeheartedly agree with the spirit of what you're trying to communicate. This is absolutely not something that you should just do on a whim without deep reflection about why you're doing it and what your intentions are about it. And definitely not without consideration of all of the small and manageable, but very real potential risks. What I can say is that I have worked with ayahuasca personally over the last 7 years, as well as within a professional context as an integration therapist. And I can assure you that no thought has been overlooked in creating the safest possible container for this experience, including a deep vetting process and a mindful awareness of social, physical, and emotional dynamics and safety. As Abby and I have been working on this project, by the way, I'm so excited for you guys to meet Abby. She is coming. We haven't figured out when or how she's going to come like a thief in the night. But yeah, she's delightful. You guys are going to love her. Anyways, as we've been working on this and putting it together, we have adopted a strict policy of if it's not a fuck yes, then it's a fuck no. And that applies to our choice of facilitators, potential participants, planned workshops, on-site nutrition, what time we're getting up and going to bed every day. I mean, no detail has gone unnoticed. And I'll be honest, we have yet to come across anything that even comes close to buckling our resolve on this fuck yes policy. So, Mr. Mutton Chops, if that doesn't reassure you, then that's okay. And it sounds like maybe this retreat isn't for you. But thank you so much for showing concern for your fellow human beings, and believe me, it is heard, and we feel exactly the same. For everyone else, I'm going to throw it in there one last time, drryanlee.com/retreat. If you have any interest, then fill out the form and we'll follow up to schedule a Zoom call, and then we can have some real talk about whether this makes sense for you. And for God's sakes, also, do your own research, okay? There's only so much information I can convey in one podcast or on one website without transitioning into a career as a novelist. I don't have time for that, okay? Do your research. Okay, so with all that said, we decided to put together a series of episodes we hope will encapsulate enough information to better inform you about whether working with psychedelics is right for you. Quick side note already. Due to the demands of having a good story arc, we will not be talking in detail about ayahuasca until episode 3 of this series. So if you're eager to learn more sooner, again, I encourage you to check out the website I mentioned. I won't mention it again. Okay, I'll mention it again. drryanlee.com/retreat. And then we can take it from there. Let's talk. Anyways, so yeah, I've referenced my own experiences with psychedelics in previous episodes, particularly in episode, I forget the number, but the one where I talk about death. I've been wanting to dedicate a full episode to the topics of psychedelics for a while, but I felt a little unsure about how to best approach it. And I saw there was basically like 3 reasons for this. First of all, for those of you out there who have never experienced psychedelics, it can be really hard to describe it in a way that's easy for you to wrap your head around and doesn't involve me using a bunch of tired cliches that make you think of cheesy psychedelic movies or something. It's hard to capture. And for those of you out there who do have experience, well, you probably don't need this kind of primer. But then secondly, there's the issue of legality, and it's probably in my best interest to say on record that I officially do not endorse anyone breaking the law. That said, I think it's safe to assume that there are some of us who may be more, let's say, selective about which laws we choose to abide by. I am by no means encouraging that. I'm just acknowledging the existence of those people. And part of the intention of this episode will be to convey the best practices possible to ensure safety for anyone who chooses to engage with these medicines, regardless of where you fall on either side of the law. But, side note, lots of side notes today, for those of you who do wish to abide by the set of laws of a given square of this earth, there are plenty of places in the world where working with any of these medicines is completely legal. Not only legal, but there's plenty of avenues for having these encounters safely with really well-established institutions that are there specifically to ensure that you have a safe journey. And then the third area of resistance I found was around how to present this material that simultaneously is entertaining, and of course we like to have a little bit of fun, and also communicates the gravity of what we're talking about. This is not shit to fuck around with. While I absolutely believe that these medicines are safe and profoundly beneficial when used with a deep respect in a safe, responsible container, working with these medicines is not something to be taken lightly. And they do have potential to do significant harm if proper precautions are not taken with regards to set and setting and dosage and a whole host of other considerations that should be considered when considering this. So for all of these reasons, I am going to start by laying heavy. I apologize, but I'm going heavy on a number of very important disclaimers and warnings that absolutely need to be discussed. Please do not tune out or skip over. I promise I will do my best to make them as entertaining as possible, but they are important and they will take a minute. Okay, for starters, let's just be real clear. Psychedelics are not for everyone. I'm not saying this with a sly tongue-in-cheek. They are not for everyone. And I am in no way making this podcast as a way of saying that everybody should do this. there are some people who absolutely should not use psychedelics. In short, anyone with dissociative disorders, extreme bipolar, schizophrenia, or other unstable mental health conditions, just to name a few. And then there's a whole host of medications that are contraindicated, such as SSRIs, which are highly dangerous when mixed with certain psychedelics. And again, this is by no means a complete list. And if you are considering working with these medicines, you absolutely must do more research on your own and really tune in to whether this is right for you. This isn't something you should just do because someone said you should or Dr. Ryan Lee says it's great. It's not. No, please. No, that's not the message. Or yeah, if you simply just think it would be cool to trip out and see pretty colors, I promise you, my friend, it's a lot more than pretty colors. And some of those colors are not so pretty. Anyways, this is very deep work which can open doors to deeper layers of your psyche. And that's not something to be taken lightly with the fuck around and find out mentality. This should only be something you engage with if you feel a deep calling and desire to do some deep, meaningful, and yes, often extremely challenging, intense, and uncomfortable work on your relationship with yourself and the universe. I'll also say that if at all possible, if you do decide to work with psychedelics, please do your best to find somebody who can act as a guide or a facilitator, people who are trained in this type of work. These people can help guide you through the process in a way that prioritizes and maximizes your chance of a safe journey. Oh God, I'm already looking at the time on the recording device. We're already like 20 minutes on this thing. All right, buddy, buckle up. we got a ways to go. And yeah, I think this one's going to be a 3-parter. And I think we need to do it justice. All right. So, when putting all this together, I started out like I do on a lot of episodes by approaching this like a book report. Webster's Dictionary defines psychedelics as blah, 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 And then I realized, as I often do, that the most effective way to convey the ideas and themes that I'm trying to communicate is just simply to speak from my own experience. So in that spirit, I'm going to take you on an extremely abridged version of my own journey with psychedelics over the last 25 years. And I do this with the intention of not only conveying the immense gratitude I have for the life-affirming benefits I've received from working with these medicines, but also in sharing my mistakes. Big fucking mistakes. In fact, episodes 1 and 2 are pretty much 20-minute long mistakes. So take note. But yeah, I'm sharing this in the hopes that it'll save you, hopefully, from some unnecessary suffering. And hopefully, if I've done my job well, we'll all walk away from this feeling both entertained and informed. Oh, one last thing. No, you're like, fucking get to it, man. Let's go. But one last thing. You may hear me refer to psychedelics as medicines over the course of this episode. I know, it sounds pretentious, but hear me out. Those who have never experienced psychedelics may be inclined to classify them as just another drug. But for most of us who've experienced them firsthand, most of us would agree that it's an unfair categorization. For starters, most drugs, in short, have some kind of numbing effect. They take away certain kinds of pain or anxiety. They dull our senses so that the things that normally trouble us no longer do, at least for a little while. And also, generally, most drugs come with some kind of cost or side effect. Hangovers, addiction, damage to our liver and other parts of our body, the whole drill. Conversely, most psychedelics have a heightening effect on the senses. Not only do they not dull things, but they tend to amp it up, in my experience, for our benefit. But yeah, it's not infrequent that sometimes it connects us with senses that we didn't even know we had or we had taken for granted. And on top of that, in most cases, with some exceptions, for sure, there are some exceptions, but psychedelics are not addictive. They have relatively little or no impact on the body, especially compared to things like alcohol and opiates and all those sort of things. And there's been plenty of research that shows that they actually have a positive impact, producing new neuronal growth, just for starters. Again, I feel like, just to cover my own ass, I am not speaking as a medical professional right now, and I am not speaking as an authority right now. I am speaking as a person who wants to share my experience. And I encourage you to do your own research. Stop listening to me. Do your research, and by all means, if you find stuff that contradicts what I'm saying, please send me an email. Let me know. I don't want to be putting out bad information, but this is the information that I've come across, and as far as I can tell, it's valid. But yeah, speaking from my own experience, I have had hundreds of ceremonies with ayahuasca, in particular myself. And again, speaking of ayahuasca, I've sat with literally thousands of other people. And what I've seen over and over again is, provided people do the preparation, the research, they act responsibly with it and with deep respect, they almost inevitably find a pathway to greater overall health on a psychological, physical, and spiritual level. Okay, finally, on to the main event. Jesus Christ, Ryan. Just so much stuff to get through. I hope it was at least mildly entertaining. Let's get to what I hope will be a more entertaining part of this episode. Now, given how much there is to cover in such a short period of time, I'll spare you all the details of the many different psychedelic adventures I've had, and I will focus on my first, my worst, and then my best. And today is dedicated to my first. All right, so let's go back in time a little bit. I was fresh out of leaving the Jehovah's Witnesses at the age of 18, and hold on one second. Let me cue up a little music to bring us back to the decade. There we go. Perfect. So yeah, I was fresh out of the JWs with this newfound freedom of turning 18, which also meant that I was now eligible for the draft. I mean, I barely just got out of a cult, and now a whole fucking different cult was trying to recruit me for this fucking bullshit war in Vietnam. You know, to go murder good people I had no issue with for reasons that were completely unclear and honestly felt pretty sinister. So obviously right away I was like, fuck no to all of that. I haven't figured my shit out, but definitely fuck no to that. So, yeah, I'm actually proud to admit I decided to migrate north to Canada to escape the draft. And once I landed in Ontario, I was lucky enough to stumble across this cute little hippie commune. I met this guy the community affectionately referred to as Happy Pete. For obvious reasons, I mean, he was a happy dude, but also some not-so-obvious reasons to my naive 18-year-old self. So yeah, Pete kind of took me under his wing, you know? He saw that I really needed someone to lean on. And anyways, long story short, I decided to join the commune to try to see what this peace and free love movement was all about, you know? Fast forward a year, and I had grown out all of my hair, upstairs and downstairs. I refused to wear anything that wasn't tie-dyed, and I changed my name to Ticklish Lotus. And I'm just fucking with you. Come on! Come on! How old do you think I am? Alright, I know, I'm pretty old. Oh, I'm sorry. That was for me. Oh, I hope you found that fun. If not, apologies. All right, let's get back to the real story, okay? No, this one was 1996. Yeah, I'm still pretty old. So, let's fix the music. There we go. That's better. All right. So there I was, decked out in my Jinko jeans. Oh my God, just that name alone. These jeans were big enough to hold like 4 legs and, pardon me, but one giant penis. These were designed, this was like an apartment style set of jeans. And yeah, the bottoms were all ragged and usually soggy from being dragged through so many puddles. I was wearing a wallet chain, I had my hardcore hoodie, and yeah, beginning my first experiments with facial hair. Such freedom, you know? But yeah, obviously still a kid, feeling thrust into adulthood in a world I was completely unprepared for. With a body full of hormones and unearned confidence, My mantra essentially became, well, if the JW said I couldn't do it, then obviously now I must. I call this my crossing off commandments phase. Basically, I just would do a test run on every single sin in the good book and figure out whether I agree with it. I felt fairly certain that I didn't need to actually murder somebody to know how I felt on that one, but pretty much all the other ones were up for consideration. And basically over the period of like 6 months, I think I went from being this like opie-looking, Bible-thumping servant of God to being a full-on deviant. You know, I started shoplifting and lying, having sex, smoking cigarettes, smoking pot. Yeah, basically trying any drug that came my way through the hands of somebody who seemed like a cool dude. Not a great bar to set. And this was how I initially found my way to psychedelics. And yeah, so my first encounter with psychedelics was with LSD. I had a very sweet friend in high school named Todd. I'll leave off last names just in case, but Todd, if you're listening, you know who you are. Todd, if you want to picture in your mind, is what a high school student who is really into the Grateful Dead might look like. Whatever you're imagining right now, you're absolutely right. That's it. You got it. Okay? For what it's worth, Todd had many layers and was actually a very sweet, intelligent, thoughtful, and complex individual. But we have only so much time to go into character development right now. So in short, Todd was a cool as fuck deadhead. Super popular in school, friends with everyone, and this dude was so kind and patient enough to be willing to go on a psychedelic journey with his very new friend who had just stumbled out of a cult. And let's be real, I was a knotted mess of confusion, insecurity, and sharp intensity. It was very intense. You think this is bad. Oh my God, you should have seen me when I was 18. So we decided for my first adventure that it would be a cool idea to go out in public. And if we're keeping track, that's mistake number 1. Do not, if you decide to do this, do not go out in public. Stay home, at best, if not with... Okay, I'm going to stop preaching. You get the idea. Don't go out in public. But yeah, we decided to go out to see the official re-release of the original Star Wars trilogy, which somehow feels older. How does this work? Somehow this feels older referring to the re-release of the original Star Wars than even referring to the actual first release of the original Star Wars. Anyways, I'm old. Moving on. Let me just crawl out of that senile tangent. So where were we? Yes, we went to go see the first Star Wars film. And this is where I'm going to just go off script for a little bit. I didn't want to write this one. I'm going to feel this one out. So here's what I remember. I was very excited. My friend got some LSD, and I had no idea what to expect. I thought maybe it'd be, like smoking pot or something like that. It most definitely is not. We got into the movie theater, and I remember going in and going, my first thought was, I'm not feeling anything. Am I supposed to be feeling anything? And then all of a sudden I was struck by this feeling of being very small in a gigantic auditorium of moviegoers. I was like, okay, that's weird. That's not how I usually feel walking into a movie theater. And so we're sitting down and waiting for the movie to start. I'm feeling something, but I don't know what it is. Like just something just kind of a little off, a little funky. And you know that opening scene of the first Star Wars where there's this gigantic battleship that is like kind of just coming out of the screen. Meanwhile, there's all these little laser, starfighters zooming around it and shooting lasers. Those lasers came out of the screen at me, period. Like, no exaggeration. I've never had anything like this particular experience. But I remember very vividly, if you imagine 3D, but that doesn't quite cut it. It's not the same. No, it was coming out of the screen and zapping past me, and I was like, holy shit, okay. I am not sure what I signed up for. Now again, poor Todd, He had no idea what he was getting into with me, and I had a very hard time containing my cool at all this happened. I mean, it was delightful. I was very enthusiastic about the whole thing, but just very hard time staying quiet about this experience in the middle of a movie theater. And I just remember him being like, dude, be cool, just be cool, just be cool. So I'm like, okay, focused on being cool, all right. So, this is where it's interesting, and it's probably appropriate that this particular story will be relatively short, because we've already taken up quite a lot of time today. But I'm going to give you the highlights of what I remember from that experience. And it took me a long time to even figure out and understand what had happened. That's why I think a lot of it doesn't sink as well into the memory, because it was just this overwhelm. But basically, it was just like the layers of reality just completely stripped away. I definitely didn't know how to describe what I was seeing and experiencing then, but from my current experience, and I still don't exactly know the right words for it, but we could call it connection to source, connection to God, whatever you want to call it. It was a deeply, deeply spiritual and moving experience, and overwhelming for somebody who just got out of a cult, who was just taught that the world is this kind of thing that is bad and is evil and there's a God and God is mad at you and he's going to destroy everything and blah, 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 blah. To just fucking opening the box of just like, holy shit, existence itself. I all of a sudden went from being someone in a cult to joining the human race in this, what the fuck is this existence, And just all the layers. And again, so many different layers that I can't even capture, and at the moment I can't even remember. But yes, it was profoundly moving, and I didn't know what to make of it. I will tell you this. One of the things about Star Wars is apparently, and actually I think I know why. Apparently, the whole meaning of life is hidden in Star Wars, and I discovered that firsthand while watching that movie. And it was so friggin' clear that everything about that story is encapsulating the story of our existence. And again, at the time, I didn't have a framework for really understanding what was happening. I just knew what I was experiencing. And later on, I don't know if you guys ever hear of the writer Joseph Campbell. He's the writer of the book Hero of a Thousand Faces. I think that's right. And this is this whole thing about the hero's journey. Basically, how the hero's journey is evident in all forms of literature, and it's the story of us, of what it is to be a human being. To be thrown into the world, into a set of circumstances, and then have to figure it out. And through the figuring it out, we discover we have Jedi powers, We discover we can do things we didn't even know we could do. We go places we didn't even imagine existed. And that's so much about what life is all about. So actually, now that I'm putting this into words, I think I'm doing a pretty good job of encapsulating this. I don't know how this is hitting you, but I'm very pleased with myself right now. But at that time, I had no idea. I had no idea what was going on. And all I could remember is me just going over and over again, really loud in the movie theater. Oh my God! It just all makes so much sense! It all makes sense! And poor Todd, he's like, dude, just chill. Please fucking chill. Please chill. Oh, yeah. So that was a delightful experience, and that opened up a lot of questions about what am I doing on this earth, and what is my relationship to psychedelics, and do I want to do more of that, and do I need more of that? And the short answer to those last questions is I decided, yes, I needed to do more of that in a very sloppy, messy fashion. And that is a story that I will absolutely get to in part 2. This story was cute and funny, and by all means had some very powerful spiritual experiences. Also, it was sloppy, and luckily nothing went too terribly wrong. But buckle up, and I'm going to share with you in the next episode when it did not go so cutely. Okay, I'll just leave you with that. Hopefully that's enough to pull you back in for part 2, which I hope will inevitably keep you hooked for part 3, which really is the most important part, which is this upcoming ayahuasca retreat. And yes, we will be talking in a lot more detail about what that experience is like and how profoundly healing it can be. Again, provided you take the proper precautions, preparations, etc. Okay. I think I've hammered it home. I think I've managed to avoid lawsuits at this point. Any lawyers out there, feel free to give me a heads up.
Throw your diamonds in the sky if you feel the vibe. The rock is still alive every time I rhyme.
Anyways, man, it has been so delightful to talk to you guys. I hope you guys found it helpful, or at least entertaining. And if you did, please hit the subscribe button, or leave us a review, or pay it forward by sharing this podcast with other people who might benefit. If you have any questions, feedback, or ideas for future topics, email me at drryanlee@drryanlee.com, or visit my website at drryanlee.com, or visit my retreat website, drryanlee.com/retreat. Until next time, remember, you are brave. You are strong. You can totally do this. I don't mean psychedelics. You can. But all the other stuff, you absolutely can and should do this. And you, my friend, are not alone.
The rock is still alive every time I rhyme. Forever, ever, forever, ever, 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 ever.
Good shit. Y'all want to hear what kind of a nutcase I am when I'm not speaking eloquently into the microphone? This is what it sounds like. Anyways. No, not anyways. Ring dong ding. I've referenced my own experience with this. I'm going to put together a bunch of outtakes of all this silliness. Yeah.